Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is day 2 of our No Place Like Home, our first annual No Place Like Home virtual conference. We've put this together to, well, the idea is to help people understand what it takes to be at home. A lot of people talk about aging in place, and sometimes I don't know that they understand what it takes to age in place. It's not really the default plan. Gotta work at it. So we've got some really good subject matter experts, and I'll get to that in just a second. Just a quick shout out to our sponsors, our Blue Cross people, and they run a little clip, and you need to watch that because there's some really good information there. Home care assistance. This is home care. Thank you for sponsoring us. Aldo Cabrini over there at Thrivent. Thank you, Aldo. Adalánt Financial Services. We're going to talk to Justin Walker from Adalánt in just a second. And we visited with Dee Childers yesterday of Life Changes Elder Care Counseling. She gave us some really good information. All right, so just some logistics. In the chat, there's the little button somewhere. I don't know if it's down below for you or up above. There's a little button that will allow you to do the chat function. And in that, Carly from my office, who is the whiz here, can help you to download some of the information that we have presented. And if you have questions, there's a little box that allows you to ask us questions as we're going along, and we encourage that. We may not get to everybody's questions, but as they come in, we can try to incorporate that into what we're doing. We have a really interesting thing. We've got a Facebook group going. There's if you have additional questions, there's answers. There's materials, some of the sponsors, presenter interactions. And then we're going to have a Facebook live chat with the Family Caregiver Navigator. And you want to hang on to that. And that link will be in that chat bar, whether it's down here or up here. So pay attention to that. All right, I'm Mark Wight from Idaho Estate Planning. I am an attorney. We do estate planning, and we do elder law, which is interesting for most people. It's not so much an area of law as it is a very particular group of clients, and we do a number of things for them. Joining me today, good friend of ours from Adalánt Financial Group is Justin Walker. And
hey, Mark.
Hi, Justin. Good morning. Got some lovely photos. And just so you know, Justin, your face is kind of blurred out on those photos. Not on the picture yourself, but on the photos.
Is that better?
There we go. We get to see the kids and your lovely wife, and now we get to see you live.
Well, they're better looking than I am, so that's why they're in focus.
I got it. Very good. Very good.
Okay.
Justin works with families and individuals, try to develop a legacy, help them to make some smart money decisions. Justin will tell us in just a second that we tend to get a little bit emotionally attached to our money choices, our financial choices, and sometimes that leads us to not make the best decisions. So his job is to help people, get prepared for retirement, especially some tax favorable retirement strategies. He's very busy over in his community. His community is the Emmett community. And then he has an office over on this side. I say this side because you kind of go up and over into Emmett, then you come up and over and back into the Treasure Valley. Justin, did I miss anything?
No, I think you're good. I'm getting some headphones to see if I can make the sound better.
Oh, very good. Awesomeness. Awesome. All right. So just so everybody knows, behind the scenes a little bit, Carly has put together a little outline for us to follow. And for Justin and me, it says, Mark and Justin, do your thing. That's our outline, Justin, is to do our thing.
No pressure on that.
Well, it may be that we've done a few things together over the years and gotten a little bit of practice, knowing what the next one, you know, what the other one's going to say at a given time. So let's get started. I'll set us up a little bit while you plug that in. Thank you. Again, anybody, if you've got questions, be sure to look at the chat box, either up or down, and hit that link, and it'll allow you to ask a question, and we'll see it here and be able to give you more information. All right, so one of the things that Justin and I talk about when we do presentations is if you're preparing for the future, whether that's retirement or whether that's how you want to live, whether you want to stay in your own home, whether you're looking at other options, whether that's independent living or assisted living, there's a cost involved with that. Now, if you don't do the planning, there are still some options available to you, and we're going to talk about those. But if you want to be in control of where you live, what your financial situation looks like, how you're going to pay for care, I can tell you that if you don't make decisions now, if you don't do the planning, then you get what I call the default plan. The default plan is the plan that you get from the government if you don't have your own plan. And the government plan, I'm going to talk about that quite a bit in the second half of this. What we found is most people don't like the default plan or the government plan. And yet, if you don't do your planning and do it, starting now, then you're going to end up with the default plan, whether you like it or not. So, Justin, you have a way of talking about how we pay for care in that last third of our lives, as we're talking about getting, up in age a little bit. It's going to cost us some money. You talk about 2 or 3 different ways that we can pay for that.
When we start talking about paying for care, especially in the later years, it's more about what assets have we accumulated? Do we have any assets that we need to try to protect? And do we have enough assets or insurance in place in order to pay for the care that is necessary? There's kind of this bubble that we look at from a financial standpoint, that if we have more than $250,000 and less than $2.5 million of assets, we probably don't have enough we don't have enough assets to self-insure. And so what that means is we may not have enough money to just pay for the care that is needed. Now, there's a lot of variables there. We may have enough income and that we might live in that bubble, and that's okay as long as our income is sufficient to pay for the care that we would need. But there's a lot of variables that come into play there. If we have less than $250,000 of assets and our income isn't very high in retirement, we may have to have more legal care and do some more planning to try to, keep track of not spending all of our assets. And if we have more than $2.5 million, we may be able to say, we may be able to just self-insure. We may not need the assistance of a backup plan. And so anytime that we meet with a client and we talk about what options are available, what should we do, what do we need to look out for, there are a lot of variables that we have to look at, but those are some of the main things that we're looking for is income and assets, and what do we want to pass on to the next generation.
So what I'm hearing is that the first way that we look at this is we can self-insure, or we can pay this out of our own assets.
Yeah, possibly. You know, if our income is high enough. Yeah. If our income is high enough and we have sufficient assets, or we you know, sometimes people are like, well, we don't really care what the next generation gets. If they get any, they get any. Well, that may be okay. But there's other clients that they want to make sure that their kids get X amount, or their grandkids get X amount. Well, then we have to do a little bit better planning if that's the case.
Yeah, there's a particular generation, and I happen to be tied into that generation where it's like it's in the DNA that they have to leave something for the kids.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when I talk to families, I often, we've been very fortunate. The kids that come in going, we don't want it. Mom, Dad, you know what? We want you to be taken care of. But it seems like it's hardwired. We've got to leave something for the kids. And so if that's the case, then it sounds like planning is critical.
Yeah, especially if we want to do it in a tax efficient way. You know, if there's other ways to pass money on to the family. There's insurances we can purchase, whether that's long-term care or life insurance, and maybe it's a combination of the two. But how much are we trying to pass on, and why? You know, and you talked about this earlier, but our standpoint is we want to understand why people do what they do with their money and what makes them happy. And if that's what it makes them happy to pass on $100 to their kids, or it's 100,000 or whatever that number is, we want to try to accommodate, but it does take planning.
Yeah, and so that's what we run into for the most part. We have seen the little ladies that have 150, 200,000 in some CDs, and we're going, great, that's awesome. That'll help to pay for your care. And they wave us off and go, no, that's for the kids. That's for the kids. Yeah. Well, if you get to the point where that's all there is, then, you know, the government plan says you're going to spend that whether you like it or not, before we'll jump in and help out. So that's a critical element to the planning, is understand what it is that you want to do. So it seems to me you've mentioned two things so far. We can self-pay, which is dependent upon our asset load, and some income. And one of the things that we don't necessarily have a lot of control over, and that is, you know, how are we doing health-wise and, you know, physically, and, you know, what happens to us in life. The second thing that you've mentioned, though, is depending again on your goals, is that you could enlist some professionals to help pay for this. You can leverage your money a little bit. You can look at some insurance, is really what we're talking about. So talk to us about that a little bit. There's a range of insurance options that can help you to meet your goals.
I'd say the sooner you can do the planning as it pertains to insurance, the better. Anytime that we're going to leverage an insurance company in order to help leverage our money, we're going to need to be insurable. And insurability is going to be dependent on our age. It's going to be dependent on how mobile we are, how healthy we are. There's a lot of factors there. So the sooner we do the planning, especially as it pertains to insurance, the more options we may have available. As it pertains to insurance, there's a couple of different ways we can do that. We can buy what's called just standalone long-term care insurance. Standalone long-term care insurance is an insurance cost. We pay for, you know, however much money per month to make sure that we have a daily benefit that's payable if we are in care. And that benefit can be anywhere from a year to 5 years to a 20-year period, depending on what we want to pay for. And looking at those insurance plans, some of those insurance plans would offer a return of premium if we don't use it for long-term care. Some of those plans don't offer a return of premium. And so understanding some of those aspects of a long-term care policy is really important. The other possibility is purchasing something like a life insurance policy that offers a long-term care rider. There is a lot of companies that offer those types of policies. So if you need long-term care, it will accelerate the death benefit of the life insurance policy, allowing you to use that care or use that money for care prior to death. And sometimes that's, I think in the most recent years, that's become very popular with a lot of people because they say, well, if I don't use it, I have a death benefit that pays out. But if I do need it, it's there. And so that becomes a very powerful tool that people can use. But once again, it all comes back to planning. We can't wait until we're 93 to try to go out and buy an insurance policy because we're not going to be able to get it.
So if I can take us backwards just a little bit. So the first type of insurance that you talked about, I guess, is what we call the traditional long-term care policy. And it's kind of lost its gloss a little bit because people say, I put all the money in and then I'm not going to need it. Well, I can tell you from my experience that isn't necessarily true. A lot of people, just families have been giddy when they find that long-term care policy because it helps pay. And so you talked about some of the factors that go into that policy. And all of these factors affect the premium that you pay. So I suggest when I visit with folks, get a long-term care policy, get some long-term care insurance. So take us through this a little bit, Justin. You can have a kind of a standard policy, and people say, well, I can't afford it. Well, that may or may not be true. If they're insurable, then maybe it's just finding the terms of the policy that fits them. And so talk to us a little bit. You mentioned some factors, but let's kind of walk through that just a little bit more.
I think that's really important to understand. There's a lot of variables to it. Let's say that we have a $5,000 a month retirement income, and we know that that's what it's going to be. And, including Social Security, maybe a pension, or just taking money out of investment accounts. But we know that care might cost us $6,000 a month. And if we want to, we could go out and purchase a long-term care policy that would be a supplement, right? It would be maybe $1,000 a month benefit that would help bridge that gap. And so you don't have to go out and buy this, Cadillac life insurance policy that provides every benefit under the moon, for 20 years. I think a lot of times when we do planning with people, we're looking at, can we do like a 5-year type of benefit period? And is it supplemental? Maybe it's not a complete life or long-term care policy that's going to cover everything. We just need to cover $100 a day or $200 a day or $50 a day, so depending on what their need is. But there's a lot of different little riders, if you will, different things you can purchase inside of those long-term care policies to make them affordable so that you feel like you're not breaking the bank in order to get that care or that insurance that you may want to. But typically we say, let's work with Mark's office and let's figure out a way that we can do the planning and have a little bit of the best of both worlds.
And marry that up a little bit. So also with the policy, you can, and this will affect the premium as well, is you have what they call an elimination period. So that can help adjust the premium. Tell us a little bit about that.
I guess the easiest way to think about it is the amount of time that the company will not pay a benefit and allow you to self-insure until they kick in the benefit. And you can choose anything from 90 days to 180 days to a full year if you want to. The longer you make that elimination period, the lower your premium dollar will be. So I think it is if we have enough cash assets sitting in IRAs or investment accounts or liquidity, we may be able to make that elimination period a little longer, which in short lowers that monthly premium or annual premium that we would pay for that policy.
So when I hear people, and this, I get a little worked up, Justin, when they say, well, I can't afford it. Well, have you talked to somebody about it? Well, no, I just know that it's expensive. I'm not sure that's the best approach. They really need to sit down with a financial advisor and start talking in real terms about what it is that they could afford or how to make it more affordable.
Yeah, I think that's really key. Too often times we hear people say, well, we can't afford it. I can't afford an advisor. I can't afford to pay for something like that. And the reality is we don't know what we can't do. We don't know what we don't know. And I think that education is really important to understanding what options do we have. It may not be that we need a full-blown long-term care policy. Right. Maybe we need to marry that up with a trust that we meet with an attorney about. And maybe it's that we have enough assets to self-insure for a couple of years, but we don't have anything else. And so maybe we take a little bit of the interest that our assets are accumulating to buy a supplemental long-term care policy. It doesn't have to come out of income. There's a lot more ways to do things. And sometimes it takes the emotional connection to the money off the table when we talk to a professional. A lot of times we'll meet with somebody and they'll have, quite a bit of assets sitting in investment accounts or in CDs or whatever. And like you said earlier, they want it to go to the next generation and they're unwilling to touch that. Well, maybe just use the interest then that it's earning to buy a supplemental long-term care policy so that you can accomplish that goal more effectively. It doesn't have to come out of your income. It can come from other ways. And I think helping people understand that and looking at it unemotionally is a really key factor to working with a professional.
So when people say, I can't afford it, they need to do some work. There's some actual information gathering that needs to happen. And from my standpoint, because I see it with people that try to do their own legal work, is you can go online and you can get a couple of million hits. And how do you work your way through all that information? And my suggestion is you talk to Justin or talk to your financial person and ask those questions because you've been through it all. You can distill that down to their situation and they don't have to read, hours and hours and hours on the internet trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
I've got one more question for you. So I get the people that are age 65 or older, and they say, well, we just can't afford it. It is now just way too expensive for us. Is that true?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily.
All right.
Yeah, we've had clients that even into their mid-70s can have been able to purchase long-term care insurance or a supplement for long-term care insurance. So you're never at a point where you should just say never, right? Yeah. You should be at a point where we say, look, let's figure it out. I think that's one thing that we've learned through this pandemic over the last couple of years, or it feels like a couple of years, but it's only been a few months. Just take one day at a time. And I think every day is an opportunity to learn something new and to figure out what's in front of us. And I think all of our clients, all people have the ability to figure that out, whether they're 60 or whether they're 45 or whether they're 80, there's still planning that can be done. Yeah. we may not have all of the options in every situation, but we can still figure it out.
Yeah, very good. So moving from that traditional long-term care policy, and there used to be some really nice ones. And then the insurance companies realized that costs a lot of money. So it's changed up. Now talk to us just briefly about the newer ones. I think they call them the hybrid, where you've got a life insurance policy, but you can access, you said, accelerate the death benefit, or you can put some extra cash into these. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So a traditional whole life insurance policy, some companies, there's quite a few companies that offer these days, but they provide a death benefit. Let's say it's a $100,000 death benefit. And if you add the long-term care rider, or if you are able to be insured for the long-term care rider, it would give you 75% of the death benefit to be used for long-term care. So if we had a $100,000 death benefit, it would provide a $75,000 long-term care benefit, assuming that the person is insurable and so on. With that being said, those whole life policies typically build cash value which can be used as a living benefit, as a supplement to retirement. And so if we don't use the long-term care and we have additional cash, we could use that cash in the life insurance policy to use as a supplement to retirement, or we can use the long-term care, or we provide a death benefit when they pass. And so just having some ability to maneuver those and make them change. And I would say the same thing about those policies. You can tweak them and change them and make adjustments to them so that it will fit the needs of the client the best. And there's quite a few options inside of those, but it does provide a little bit more maneuverability with just one policy that will provide a little bit of benefit either way we need it.
Okay, so the bottom line on this, I hate to beat a dead horse, but the point I'm really trying to get people to understand, I think, is there's so many options. But there's more options if we start now. If we wait till we're 85, it's not that we're without options, there's just fewer options when you're 85.
Yeah.
So get going, start on this. We're going to talk today about some skilled nursing issues. We can look at costs. It gets kind of spendy, so get going. Start on this. And we talked yesterday about the concept that people have that, oh, my daughter will just move in and take care of us, or we're going to go move in with our daughter and her family and they'll take care of us. And often when people tell me this, they haven't talked to their daughter about this. And so it's like, okay, maybe that's a good plan. Maybe it is. Okay, so we've talked about paying just with your own assets. We've talked about leveraging your money a little bit, using professionals who can help you to make some decisions and give you access to many more options. So this is the part where then I kick in and start talking a little bit about, well, can we use, is there any government money that's available to us to help pay for long-term care? Well, and the answer is yes. And most people have heard of Medicaid. Now, Medicare, Medicaid signed into law in 1963 by Lyndon Baines Johnson. And unfortunately, they chose names that were very close. So there's Medicaid, there's Medicare. To qualify for Medicare, there's only one thing that you need to do, and that's turn 65. So Medicare is health insurance, you turn 65. A lot of people believe that any long-term care needs will be paid by Medicare. And first thing to know is, no, that's not true. They will pay for medical. So the typical scenario looks like this. Have a fall, break your hip, go into the hospital, Medicare, Medicare, Medicare. get you taken care of, move you out of the hospital. A lot of pressure on hospitals, if you're on Medicare, to move you out as soon as humanly possible. And they move you into, say, a rehab situation, rehabilitation. You'll be in there until one, you're absolutely better, or the doctor says you're as good as you're gonna get. So they kick you out. If you need more care than going home, you'll go or stay in a skilled nursing facility. As soon as the doctor says you're as good as you're gonna get, Medicare is done. You will now be paying for your custodial care and your assisted living yourself. And so that's what we've been talking about, is how to pay for this that Medicare doesn't cover. So Medicaid, there's more to it than turning 65. There are really two big issues. There's three elements that you have to meet in order to be eligible. And the one I'm assuming, and that is that a doctor has said, you need this type of care. And so I'm assuming that the doctor's done this. So the next thing with Medicaid is there are limitations for your income and the amount of assets that you have. And so to qualify for Medicaid, your income has to be under about $2,350 a month. And that changes from year to year. So you have to pay attention to that. That's not a lot of income. So if you're under that for the income, then you'll qualify as long as your assets are less than $2,000. You have to have less than $2,000 in assets. So if you have nothing and very little income, you'll qualify. Well, what about the rest of us that have been paying taxes for a long time, and those taxes go into the general account and the general budget? Medicaid payments are a part of that budget, and it's part of what you and I have been paying into for a long time. So then the question becomes, can I use a governmental program to help supplement what I'm doing? And the answer is yes. If you understand one, $2,000 in assets is not a lot. And those are countable assets. So how does that work? Well, your car is not countable. If you have a funeral plan, that's not countable. Your house, if it has equity of less than about $860,000, is non-countable. So you're going, oh, good. I'll just put all my money into the house, and then, you know, I'll have the lower income. I'll be fine. And that's perfect. That's a perfect scenario. Except, as Justin was mentioning earlier, some people want to leave the house to the kids. So here's what happens. Medicaid says you got less assets, your house isn't countable, we'll pay for your care. At your death, they want to come back and retrieve out of the house the value of the payments, the Medicaid payments that they've made over time. And one of the things that you'll find when you start into this is that the cost of long-term care can be pretty high, ranging from $3,500 a month to, you know, well over $10,000 a month. And so $10,000 a month for 10 years, you know, that's $1 million. And if you have any equity in the house, it will be gone. It will go to health and welfare. That's the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare to repay your costs. So first thing in my book is to visit with Justin and talk about the ways that you can pay for the care. The second thing, if you determine that your options are not huge, Justin was talking about, well, get with the attorney. Are there some things the attorney can do? And the answer is absolutely. And as Justin and I have found out, that the financial side and the legal side go hand in hand, and there's a number of things that we can do to prepare for possibly needing Medicaid as a way to supplement, you know, the assets that you have and how to pay for it. And so Justin was also talking about you can get terms, you know, periods they pay out from 1 year to 3 years to, I haven't seen many 5-year payments anymore, Justin.
You haven't seen benefit periods of 5 years?
Yeah, I've seen the 1, the 3, the 4, but not so much the 5. I imagine that's still available.
It is still available.
Okay. So why am I talking about these benefit periods and getting some private pay for a period of time? There's 2 reasons to do this. One is that Medicaid has a 5-year look back. So if you're going to say, okay, Medicaid, I can't have more than $2,000 in assets, I'm going to give it away to the kids now. And Medicaid said, not if you do it within 5 years. If you want to give it away, we can't stop you. But if you do it within 5 years of applying for Medicaid, you got a problem. Well, one of the ways to ensure that gap, that period of time, is to visit with Justin and say, Justin, I need a 5-year policy. I want to pay for 5 years, and then I'm going to go on Medicaid because I did all this planning in the 5 years. That's not a bad strategy. There are some things that you have to get really clear on. If you're going to preserve these assets and give them away, then you have to live with the decision that you're going to be on Medicaid. Medicaid pays for assisted living. It pays much less than those facilities get for private pay. So it's not that they're not thrilled to have you, it's that their profit margin, if they have any, is not huge if they're receiving Medicaid payments instead of the full cost. So again, going back to Justin, we need to figure out a way that we can supplement what Medicaid does. And again, that's all possible. There are things that we can do to make that happen. There's some additional planning that can go in place. The other reason that you might want to have some money set aside is that a number of assisted living facilities or communities don't mind you going on Medicaid as long as you've paid private pay for a couple of years, anywhere from 18 months to 2.5 years. Now, there's a reason they pick those numbers. That's the average stay in assisted living, meaning a lot of people don't survive that period of time. They die. And so they say 2 years, knowing that the odds of you living much longer than that are pretty low. But if you do the 2 years, they'll let you go on Medicaid. You're going to see some changes in the quality of your care on Medicaid because it's expensive care and they're not getting full reimbursement. So again, back to Justin. Justin, can we add a little bit more so that we stay in the private, the private room and we've managed our care a little bit better? And again, the answer is absolutely, we can do that. My experience is that people don't know how to do this by themselves and they get lost. And so if you want to get planning, now is a good time. Earlier may be better, but don't let that stand in the way. Justin, now's a good time to do planning.
Now is a great time to do planning. There's a proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time is today.
Now.
It's the same thing with the planning. The sooner we can do it, the better. But if we haven't done any planning, it's okay. Let's start from here.
Yes. So financial planning, yes. Let's talk a little bit about some of the tools then. Justin has a whole bunch of financial tools. I want to talk just a minute about the legal tools, because if something happens to you and you're incapacitated, not only do other people need these tools, but Justin's going to need to see those so he can continue the financial planning. So what do we need? For me, you need a power of attorney. You need a durable financial power of attorney. If there are changes and you've become incapacitated, Justin can't make those changes unless your power of attorney, the person that you picked, can hand him or scan and send to him the financial durable power of attorney that says, I can act on behalf of my mom or my dad, however that's set up. And they get kind of particular, Justin, about having a power of attorney.
Yes, they do. They want to make sure that it's all, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted.
Yes. And so that's to me is a big one, to have that in. Now, you're going to say, well, can I go online? Can I just get a form? And the answer is yes. There's a decent form. I think it's the 4th Judicial District has a form that you can get. It's not bad. It's not awesome. It's not even great, but it's okay. So if you can't afford, and I'm sitting here I'm advocating for you now, find a way to afford a really good, we call them a supercharged power of attorney, because one of the things, well, several of the things we put in there are the ability to do some Medicaid planning. And I haven't talked a lot about the VA aid and attendance planning. It's a little bit the same, a little bit different, but again, power of attorney allows you then to do some planning. If you become incapacitated, it allows us to do some later planning for both of those. Healthcare power of attorney. We heard Dee Childers say yesterday, if you're over the age of 18, you really, really need a healthcare power of attorney, because you don't know. I have a bad habit. I read the obituaries. And I noticed yesterday, more than half of the people in the obituaries were my age or younger. Okay, so of course, that's not going to happen to me. But people get in automobile accidents. They have different physical or health issues. Need a healthcare power of attorney so that your family or whoever you appoint can visit with the doc and make decisions. We like to have the living will in there. Living will is kind of a weird name because it has nothing to do with living, and it's not really a will. It's really instructions on what you want to have happen if you are in a persistent vegetative state or you're terminal and you're going to die. And in neither of those are you conscious and available to tell us what you want to do. So that's a living will. Other states call it an advance directive. You can decide whether you want them to give you everything to plug you in, keep you alive, or to the far end of that, disconnect it, let me go, or somewhere in between. One more thing to talk about with the living will is the POST, the physician's order of scope of treatment. This is a do not resuscitate on steroids. There's more that goes into this. And then a will and or a trust. These are great tools to have so that you can, as Justin said, if you want to leave things to your family, you got to wrap it up tight and make sure that it happens. All right, well, that was kind of a down and dirty. Justin, thank you.
Thank you.
We could do much more. We could talk a lot more about some financial tools and a little bit more about legal tools. Justin, if they want to get more information from your shop, how do they do it?
Feel free to reach out to us. Our website is myadalant. It's ADALANT.com. And you can reach us there, or you can call us via phone at 208-724-2291. We'd be happy to have at least a consultation and talk about what options and strategies may be available to you.
If they're 73 and they haven't done any planning up till now, they shouldn't call you?
No, they should still call. They should still call, and we should still talk, because there may be other options they just aren't aware of.
Yeah, yeah. And there's some things you can do to leverage the assets that they do have and help pay less tax. And if they're leaving things to the kids, you can still do that by paying and still pay less tax. So yep. If you're concerned about taxes, you got to talk to a good financial advisor, and I can heartily recommend Justin as a great financial advisor and can help you.
Wow, thank you.
All right, very good.
Thank you, Mark.
Justin, thank you. We're going to go into a break. It's about 15 minutes. We'll get back on here at 11. You have time to go refill your coffee, get your soda. And if you've been drinking coffee and soda, you got time to go to the bathroom, maybe get some treats. When we come back, we're going to visit with Dr. Louise Yilu of Brightview Health. You're going to love her. Gerald Bosen's going to talk to us about long-term care, skilled nursing. He's with Life Care Centers of Treasure Valley and does just a tremendous job. So again, Justin, thank you very much.